cowboy Daniel Ricciardo is finally back in a Formula One seat, finally coming to drive in his favorite Grand Prix, the Circuit of the Americas. Well, let's see if Las Vegas tops it, but he loves his America Grand Prix and he loves the whole entire cowboy aspect of being in America. He just recently drove in Dallas with a older version of a Red Bull car, doing, their little stunts, couple of burnouts, and just entertaining the public. But what does this mean for Sergio Perez, and particularly for Red Bull in general for their 2024 season? Because him coming back signifies a lot of things. A rumor just recently came out that I wanted to talk about with an ultimatum that was given to Sergio Perez. Practically says, keep P2, you keep your seat for 2024. And after these quote-unquote retirement rumors that were coming out, he has now said that he wants to be in Formula One for another 3 to 4 years. Well, he's definitely not going to be in Red Bull for another 3 to 4 years, but will he be with Red Bull even till next year? He started the season particularly well. In Saudi, picking up that P1 when Max was behind. Then in Baku, actually capitalizing on the safety car. He did, I think, have the pace even to match Max anyways. Pretty competitive. In Miami is where everything went south, and it was crash after crash after crash. Now with Daniel Ricciardo coming back, the pressure is back on. Liam was impressive. They're looking to move him up into alphatauri. Yuki is a good placeholder over there. And Daniel Ricciardo is looking like the most competitive one, considering they have his times from the simulator. And he was pretty good in the couple of Grand Prix he was in. Can he match up quickly on pace with one practice, then a sprint, 2 qualies, and the race? Can Daniel Ricciardo do it? I think Daniel Ricciardo is going to be putting the biggest pressure now on Sergio. Why is that? Because his performances will dictate on whether Sergio keeps his seat. I don't think the retirement thing is true, but I do think with this rumor, and you know how it is in Formula One, 90% of the time, these rumors tend to be true, especially when it's like an ultimatum. For him to keep P2, I would say this. He could perform badly here, practically bad in Mexico and Brazil, but as long as he gets a good performance in Las Vegas, where that car is probably going to shine outside of the rest, kind of like he did in Monza, not too many turns, a lot of straights, you don't have to really be as focused on getting that understeer under control like Sergio does, it's very possible that he keeps this P2. It'll be tough for him to actually lose it. It's not really on Daniel to do that, it's more on Lewis capitalizing when Sergio is off the points. I mean, if he was able to capitalize in Qatar, it would be a lot closer of a Grand Prix. But I think here, yet again, Perez might struggle, car doesn't suit him, so on. Circuit of the Americas won't look favorable for him. If Daniel can even get a point here, that'd be a huge thing. That AlphaTauri is not the best of cars. It's pretty much a tractor, but they're talking about bringing more upgrades to bring that car into a more RB9 type shape towards the end of the season, still bringing a lot of stuff. This puts that pressure back on Perez now. And Horner was saying, he's the type of guy that you want to put your hand around the shoulder and he does better. But even that is now becoming too much of a thing for the Red Bull guys, because Perez on and on is just making mistake after mistake after mistake. And I feel like we've been talking about this all season. Will he continue in 2024? Will this still be the Red Bull team in 24? Can they actually match other teams? In the last 3 races, Sergio hasn't even scored 10 points altogether. It has not been a great second half to the season. Monza was a good performance, as I talked about, but that's not really reliant on driving ability. It's more how good the car is there. He was not able to even overtake George Russell for a lot of laps there. He struggled with Leclerc. He struggled with Sainz. He struggled with a lot of people on overtaking them, and I think that's mainly due to driving style and factor. It's not been a great season for him. Honestly, I wish him the best, and I think a perfect replacement, as I talked about in another video, is put Sergio in the seat that Lance is in. That'd be magnificent. The guy was great in Racing Points. He was a leader in Racing Points. He was doing amazing. Even when Lance was great in the beginning of the season, Perez was still the better out of the two. And then towards the end, even better, under pressure. But this pressure is different. He doesn't have it under control. He doesn't have this car under control. And Daniel is just looking to snatch that spot. He has been very vocal about taking this seat. He's the only guy in the past 10 years that's really given Max any problems. Obviously, Max has only been in the sport for 7 years, but in those 7 years that he's been in here, nobody has posed a threat like Daniel Ricciardo. And yes, those were the beginning seasons, but you can't forget, this guy was the latest of the late breakers. I'm not even talking about what Max is doing on late braking. It's what he was doing. Those overtakes that he was pulling off were insanity, and the car just was favorable for his driving style, which it is to Max's driving style. they're very similar. Both the two of them love short corners and braking a little bit earlier getting into them. It suits them much better. Now the AlphaTauri car is pretty bad on its brakes, but it did seem like Daniel Ricciardo had a better grip for this car. Considering how the two races unfolded while Daniel was in the car, it definitely was a better performance than I've seen from him in McLaren that whole entire 2-year stint. Obviously he had the Monza performance, but as I said, that's more car reliability than it is driver reliability on how good they can perform there. Some tracks are important like that. Circuit of the Americas is an important one. So is Brazil. Mexico is a little bit car reliability as well. I think that's where Checo could perform a lot better. It's going to be tricky. He has to accomplish a couple things. He needs to get one more P1 and P2 with Max to secure that second place. And I think that could either come in Mexico or Las Vegas because the car will be very strong there and competitors won't be close. Circuit of the Americas, competitors will be close. I think Brazil, same thing, and I think Abu Dhabi as well. And I think when competitors are close, he seems like he's almost 8th out of that real top 5 of teams, which I would say McLaren, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes are your top 5 there. And Lance is obviously 10th. Then you kind of got Perez in that 8th, 9th type position, making him almost always out of the points. That's not enough points to actually be fighting with Lewis, who's always fighting for at least a P5 minimum. It's going to be a tricky couple of Grand Prix. I think he's really got till the Mexico GP to pull off this real ultimatum that Red Bull has given him. Do you think they've done it? Do you think they've actually given him a real, listen dude, you get second place, we'll give you the seat? Is it even worth it at this point? What are your guys' thoughts? Who do you think can actually take this position? I saw Helmut Marko talking about Fernando Alonso. I made a video earlier on this with Fernando joining in 2024. I don't necessarily think this is something that will happen. I think that's a bit out of the world right now. The driving styles of those guys are actually complete opposites as well. Even though Fernando's very adaptable, he is the older driver. There's no real reason to put him in the Red Bull. It would be like, why give Max some competition? They need somebody that's going to kind of be a good marketing person, and Daniel is that guy. I recently saw also somebody talking about that that's all they want to bring him in for is the Daniel Ricciardo's marketability. I don't think so. The guy's a driving master. I think he's got a lot of potential left, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. You guys are always very controversial on Daniel Ricciardo and where you guys stand with him, but I think he's the closest competitor we got right now with Max. And listen, if that Red Bull car is going to dominate, I would at least like somebody to fight with him, kind of like we had in 2016 and 14 with the Mercedes boys. We need some competition. I don't think it's going to be as much domination in 2024. And if Perez is there, those McLaren boys will get them. Those Mercedes boys and Ferrari boys will all get them on constructors if it's very close. They need another guy that's going to get those points and get the scrappy points when need be. Not track limits and not these mistakes. So I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. It means the world.